Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for being here with us for tonight's webinar, Adoption Funding 101. I'm Kim King, and I'm here with Lifetime Adoption, and we are excited to bring you this amazing, wonderful, helpful information from your adoption finance coach. And I'm here with Kelly. Kelly, thank you for joining us tonight.
Hi, Kim. Thanks so much. It's an honor and a privilege to be here talking with you about this topic.
Now, we have families who are brand new to Lifetime and some families that are already actively working with us. So, just want to address a couple of things. If you're brand new to Lifetime, be sure to fill out your free application at lifetimeadoption.com. And you are welcome to reach out to request information. We've got a great digital info packet we can send right over to you. You can also call, text, or email to get specific questions answered. You do not have to have a scheduled appointment just to connect with us. You can email me directly to request adoption information. My email is kim@lifetimeadoption.com. Be sure to include your first and last name, what state you're in, and also just anything about your story that has brought you here to this point. I would love to connect with you and answer any questions that you have. And just be sure to put in there that you'd like to receive the info packet for adoptive parents. If you're already working with Lifetime, this webinar is not one of your two exclusive adoptive family support webinars. I know sometimes families see the registration and they hop right on it, and that's awesome. But you do have your two exclusive webinars just for Lifetime's families, and this is not one of them, but of course you are welcome to stay because any and all adoption funding information is welcome. Also, if you are just starting to get to know us here at Lifetime, be sure to follow us on your social media. We are on all the platforms. Just look up Lifetime Adoption so you can stay in the loop and get that encouragement and information every time you visit your social media. So, with that, Kelly, I am going to hand over the reins to you because you have so much that we need to cover.
Thanks so much, Kim. I appreciate having the opportunity, as I said, to be here. This is one of our favorite topics, so I hope that everyone is rolling up their sleeves. We have a lot of information to cover this afternoon, all about how to fund your adoption. Before I launch into that, though, I just want to talk about our partnership with Lifetime. So your adoption finance coach comes alongside the Lifetime families to help you with really creating a customized, comprehensive financial plan for your adoption. So many questions about how do I do this? What are the components? What's the formula for how to do this? What do other families do? Can I get grants for my adoption? Just a number of different things. And so hopefully we're going to kind of level the playing field this afternoon and give you some information, but we also want to invite you to engage with our coaches. So if you are, as Kim said, if you're already a Lifetime family, this is included in the services with Lifetime. And you can certainly inquire about how this program works. As Kim said, if you reach out to her at her email. A little bit about myself. I am an adoptive parent. Actually brought our daughter home from China in 2007. That seems like an eternity. She is 18 years old. She's going to college in Minnesota. She is studying Mandarin and wants to be a translator. So couldn't be more proud of her. But I will say this to you, it was a turning point for me. I come from the nonprofit sector. My lens on life was writing grants and raising money and doing events, all things associated with development in the nonprofit sector. And it was really telling for me when I went through this adoption, when we brought our daughter home, that at that time, no one really talked to us about the financing. Nobody talked to us about how we do this and what grants are available and what other families do. And I really felt as if my skill set really was something that I could bring back to the adoption space. And so for the past 15 plus years, we have worked with over 17,000 families, reportedly raising over $18 million in cash, loans, gifts, fundraising, employer benefits, all things. And so we're super, super proud of that today, and we hope to get an opportunity to work with each and every one of you as you kind of step into this journey, and it is a journey. So know that the very, very qualified, wonderful folks at Lifetime and our team really want to come alongside and help you with all aspects of this process. So with that, I am going to jump in, and we're really going to start here. We're going to start to talk about ways to fund your adoption. I think the most important thing that you need to understand is, unless you have all the money for your adoption, and if you do, good for you. If you've got a sizable amount in savings, good for you. But sometimes that doesn't mean that you want to deplete all of that, right? Sometimes it means that you want to learn about some other ways that you can kind of supplement that. Haven't we learned by going through COVID that our emergency savings account is very, very important to us? So these are kind of we break it down in kind of 4 ways for how to fund your adoption. We talk about cash, we talk about loans, we talk about grants, and we talk about crowdfunding and social media. So within this, we're going to break these down for you tonight and talk to you about what each of these actually mean and how you can understand how to utilize them. But before we do that, we want to share with you kind of our formula for adoption, for funding your adoption. We have just, as I said, worked with so many families over the years that we kind of have a formula. We've kind of come along to understand what families are doing and what's successful, more importantly, what's not. So this particular formula is a pie broken up into a thirds. It's not an upside down peace sign, I promise. It just came out that way. So basically it's a third. So the first third is your own money. That's what you need to think about, the first third. So how much money are you setting aside for your adoption? We'll get into a little bit of that. So the first third is your own money. The second third is going to be loans and family gifts. And the last part of that pie is going to be grants and fundraising. So back to that first thing that I said, and that is, there is no silver bullet. There's not one thing, of course, unless you have all the money already saved, good for you, but there is no one thing that is going to fund your entire adoption. Let me just say it. There is no grant, there is no foundation that will underwrite your entire foundation. So let's just blow that myth out of the water there so that you understand that. But when we talk about cash, that really starts with you. It really starts with what you are going to put into, to have skin in the game, if you will. And the question is how much are you going to contribute? Now, setting up, we recommend that you set up a separate account for your adoption. That's very, very important. You may have a savings account. That savings account may be an emergency savings account. When we talk to folks, sometimes they'll tell us about their savings account and they'll say, well, here, this amount of money is for savings and this amount of money is for our vacation and here's amount of money for emergency. And so it's very important when you start the adoption process that you kind of take the money out that you want to start in your own separate adoption savings or checking account, whatever works for you. But taking that money out, because I can tell you that as you get down this path, things are going to start rolling. You're going to start paying bills and invoices and all those kinds of things. And you don't want to turn around one day and look at that account and go, oh, wait a minute. Hold on, we didn't mean to spend that much. Or wait a minute, we didn't know we were doing that. You want to have intention around how much money you are spending. The other part about having a separate savings account for your adoption or checking account really is to be able to watch it grow, right? So if you are setting aside money each month, we don't tell you how much that's going to be. We recommend that you go and you look at your personal budget and what's comfortable to you. It's $50 a month could be comfortable. $200, $300 could be comfortable. Whatever you decide is comfortable. But what you've done is you've been intentional about looking at your own personal budget. What can we afford to set aside for our adoption? And you can watch that grow. The other part, and something that our coaches help you with, and that is creating a timeline of expenses. We are really adamant, if you will, emphasize, if you will, the need for creating a budget, the need for understanding at the very beginning, how much money is this? Now, you're not going to get down to the wire and the detail, but in the first part of it, you're going to be doing a lot of projecting. So you're going to project some expenses. You're going to consider a timeline and when those expenses occur. And that becomes kind of a living document that you're going to tweak along the way. So you're going to review and revise that document. In our program, we have templates that you can download, and of course, our coaches that are able to help you to identify what are those expenses, when do we need to create that timeline, and kind of how do we go back and review and revise that timing. So this first part is very important, because I can tell you that as you get down the road and you're going to apply for grants, for example, if you're going to apply for grants, you need to know that applying for grants, they are going to want to know what your finances are. They're going to want to know what your plan is. They're going to want to know how you plan to pay for this adoption. So it's very, very important. So this is at least some of the things that you need to know in terms of understanding your own cash and your own funding. So the next thing we're going to talk about are gifts from family and friends. And yes, gifts from family and friends. People are going to want to give you money for your adoption. It's just something that they're going to want to do. And my best advice to you is let them. Now, you might not want to let them right away. One of the aspects about gifts from friends and family is to really understand how much money you need before you start going out on a social media campaign or before you start actually raising funds or writing a grant. You need to understand how much money you need. How much do we have? How much do we need? And then how do we get from where we are to where we need to be? But I'm going to give you a little nugget here, and that is, according to the IRS, each person can receive up to $17,000 in cash gifts without claiming those on your taxes. And so that's very important. You can take that money, you can apply it to your taxes, and then, you can take that money, you can apply it to your expenses rather, and then you can use the receipts and put it toward your adoption tax credit. Let me give you a better example. I give you $1,000 for your adoption in whatever form or fashion I give it to you. I give it to you in either cash gift, or if you have a GoFundMe or an Adopt Together or whatever platform that you have, I just write you a check, whatever the case might be. I've already paid taxes on that money. So you can have that money and you can then accept those funds tax-free, and then you can use those funds to pay for your qualified adoption expenses and then put that toward the adoption tax credit. So when you think about gifts from family and friends, there are lots of different ways to receive those gifts. And again, our coaches can really help you to understand what are the best ways, what are the tax advantages, what are the best ways of doing that. But the point of talking about this is to say, don't rule this out. And this is really where we come from here. This is not about hat in hand. This is not about, oh, please give us money for our adoption. This is really about letting them. This is really about letting them be a part of this amazing community that you're building. Being a part of the family, being a part of this, let them help you. And I think that's probably the best advice that I can give you on being on this side, on the beginning of this process. So let's jump quickly to loans, talking about loans. Now, going back to that formula, so you remember, a third of it is your own money, a third of it is loans and family gifts, And then the other third is going to be grants and fundraising. You may be saying, I am not going to take any loans out for my adoption. I don't want to incur any debt, and that is your right. You don't have to do that. What I will say is that sometimes being open to a short-term loan, okay, can mean a means to an end. And I'll describe that to you in just a moment as we get down and we talk a little bit about the adoption tax credit and some new information we have about that as well. But when we talk about loans, of course, there's personal secured and unsecured loans. There is your employer retirement fund. Now, during the CARES Act, Congress came up with what is called QBOD, which is Qualified Birth or Adoption Distribution. Now, it would not normally be our standard of practice to tell you to distribute from an employer, to take a distribution from an employer retirement fund. Usually really doesn't work out in the long run. You pay penalties on it, you pay taxes on it, usually doesn't really work out. But in this case, the QBOD is a $5,000 per child fund. So you can take $5,000 out of your employer fund, your retirement fund, your 401k or 403b, and you can take it out penalty without any penalty. And you don't have to pay any penalty on it, but you do have to pay taxes on it. Now it's $5,000, so this is usually not our first go-to, because usually you want to make a plan for the larger amount of funding that you have to get. This might be something that, like, if you need money at the very end, or if you need money for travel or whatever, that you would access these particular funds, but they are available to you. So just know that. What I would recommend doing is finding out if you can borrow from your 401k. And if you can borrow from the 401k, then that's a better play, because you're borrowing from your own money, your interest rate is very low, and you're not being taxed or penalized for that. We all know about the home equity line of credit. So that's very important to understand too. That is something that you can do here. The issues around the home equity lines of credit. Now, the good news about those is it's a home equity line of credit. You can use it for anything. You can take out the money, you can use the whole line, you can pay it back and use it again if you want to, depending upon the length or term of that loan. The bad news about the home equity line of credit is that you can no longer take the interest as a tax deduction. So you know how you can take your mortgage as a tax deduction, your mortgage interest rather, as a tax deduction. On the home equity line, you have to prove that you're using that line for home improvement before you can take that interest off on your taxes. Looking at lenders such as banks and credit unions, and then of course non-traditional lenders. And we're going to talk a little bit about traditional lenders. So traditionally, you know, I remember the days, right? And I'm probably aging myself here, so forgive me. I remember the days when my father would take me to the local bank. We came from a small town in Missouri, and he would take me from a local bank to the local bank, and he'd introduce me to the banker. And he would tell me how important it was for me to know the bank president or the regional manager of that bank, so that if I ever needed money or I ever needed a loan, I could go to him and I could talk to him about that. So I remember those days. I don't think that exists anymore. We have so many mega banks that are around. If you have a bank like that, then absolutely yay. But go to your own bank first if you have a relationship with that bank and you know that people can potentially give you a loan. That's where you're probably going to get your best deal. There is an organization around credit unions that we're seeing that's kind of popping up. The three that we can really talk about, and they're kind of popping up in other places as well. We try and keep track of them as they come in. But America's Christian Credit Union, they're a national credit union. Firefly Credit Union is in Minnesota, and ViStar Credit Union is in Florida and Georgia. What all three of these have done in common is they have created an adoption line of credit. I love this product. So going back, remember, to the home equity line, you get a line of credit, you pay it down, you pay it, you know, you use it again, you pay it down depending upon the term. I love that product. I think it's a wonderful product. It's the same thing with an adoption line of credit. you might get qualified for an adoption line of credit at the very beginning of your adoption. And you use that kind of as a safety net while you're doing your fundraising, or while you're writing grants, or while you're doing, your crowdfunding, whatever it is that you decide that you're going to do, how you're putting that financial plan together. And then if you need the funds, you can use them from your line of credit, and you only pay back what you use. So that is it's just really a very popular item. Note, America's Christian Credit Union, so you do have to sign a statement of faith and become a member of the credit union. Credit unions are technically a nonprofit entities, and they are membership nonprofit entities. So they do work a little bit differently than banks do. Of course, we've all seen online, some of the online lenders. This is just one example, but Lightstream is an online lender. There's another one that I like called My Egg Fund. And My Egg Fund is kind of like a search engine, like Lending Tree. So you can go out and you can search, you can fill out an application with your financial information, and it will go out and search for you. And My Egg Fund works specifically with IVF, surrogacy, egg donor, and adoption. But they can go out and actually look for it, and then you get like a list of how many people, or excuse me, a list of lenders, offers, if you will, to see if you can get an offer for those particular funds that you're looking for. So one more, and then I think we'll pause for some questions. So we have to also look at, we've got your traditional lenders, okay? And then now we have non-traditional lenders. So non-traditional lenders, you're going to hear me talk about a couple of these twice tonight. Lifesong for Orphans is a foundation that not only gives you grants, but also does has a lending arm. So they also give loans for adoption. ABBA Fund, same way. They are they're really kind of a crowdfunding platform, but they also give loans. Pathway for Little Feet give a lot of different types of loans at a lot of different levels, kind of up to $15,000, I believe. Lifesong for Orphans is about up to $10,000. Lifesong for Orphans and ABBA Fund are popular because they're 0% interest. But you have to be careful about that because you do have to make payments on it. So you have to kind of weigh the difference between tying up your monthly cash and doing a 0% interest loan. Sometimes these loans you don't have to pay for them or start to pay them back until the child is home. And then a Child Waits. A Child Waits is also a foundation, but they do give a loan, and they can give you a loan and a grant at the same time. I think it does not exceed $10,000, but they can do both of them for you. On a Child Waits, they do have a small interest rate. I want to say it's 3%, and they do require a co-signer. It doesn't matter if your credit score is 850, they want a co-signer. So, I'm going to take a breath, Kim.
Kelly, thank you so much for bringing us up to this point in our webinar today. And if you are just joining, Kelly is here from Your Adoption Finance Coach, and Your Adoption Finance Coach, or YAFC, has a partnership with Lifetime Adoption. So when you are a family that we're working with, you have access to work with Kelly's team one-on-one and receive all of the detailed guidance and all of the inside tips on how to apply for grants and how to successfully fundraise and how to piece your fund together. You get access to that. So if you are currently listening and you're already working with Lifetime and you're not enrolled in YAFC, please let your coordinator know that you would like to be enrolled to receive this service that is sort of a cherry on top that we offer to our families. even if you already have established a good portion of your adoption fund, it never hurts to get a little extra help and guidance in some other ways that you can continue to be financially savvy in approaching your adoption fund. So, Kelly, thank you so much for providing this service. I know this is something that you've been helping families with for many, many years now and have helped families yield thousands and thousands of dollars. Also, just if you are new to Lifetime, be sure to fill out your free application at lifetimeadoption.com. If you would like to receive adoption information, email me, kim@lifetimeadoption.com. And Kelly, I will toss it right back over to you.
Thank you, thank you. And if there's any questions, Kim, just chime in and let me know, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions. I'm sure as we get farther into the presentation, there will be.
I think we
Um,
are just such sponges tonight. And also, if you're listening and you're like, wait, I wish I could rewind that, we are recording this. So just call, text, or email and get the link sent to you, okay, for the recording when it's ready.
Yes, thank you. A couple things I want to point out that Kim just talked about. So she is correct. It doesn't really matter where you are in the process. You do not have to start with us, meaning we'd love for you to start right at the beginning with us, the moment you get, you sign up with Lifetime. But if you're already a Lifetime client, you're already working on this, and as Kim said, you already feel like you have a pretty good handle on your financial plan, great. I would recommend picking up the phone or emailing us. You can make an appointment with the coaches at coach@youradoptionfinancecoach.com. You should be able to go into the portal and make an appointment. Spend 30 minutes with a coach. It never hurts. Spend 30 minutes, spend an hour with a coach, however much time you need, and talk to them about what you're thinking about doing. Talk to them about your plan. And it's possible that we might be like, yay for you, but it's also more likely that we might have some recommendations for you to kind of improve upon that particular plan. The
Yes,
other thing I want
exactly.
you to
And
know, yeah, go
Kelly,
ahead.
for those listening, if you're already working with Lifetime, you know that you have your Lifetime Adoption Portal. Kelly's team at YAFC has a specific portal that your coordinator here at Lifetime will enroll you for. So that's how you can access their portal to get in to be able to make those appointments.
Yeah,
Right, Kelly?
thanks.
Yes.
Yes, that's right. And you'll get your own password, you'll get a welcome email, you'll get a link to make an appointment with the coach. And we have a video library of over 35 videos that you can watch on demand whenever you want to. So, 2 in the morning when you're worried about writing that grant or whatever, you can get in there and you can watch any video that you want to. And believe me, I know that people do that.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I want you to know is that we have taken surveys of our families. And so typically a family that is, and this is just information that families are giving us, when we go out and ask them, like, how much money did you raise? How much money were you able to obtain through grants and loans and gifts and those kinds of things? And typically it's between $18,000 and $25,000 that families will report to us by virtue of using our system. And we do have a system. We've done this before. So when you talk with a coach, based on your specific information, they're going to be able to guide you toward what is the best solution for you. There is no one size fits all, not in this space. You're going to qualify for different grants. You're going to want to get a different loan. There's a lot of different things that you're going to want to do. So just so that you know, it's a really a concierge service. It's a very white glove type of service that is really going to guide you based on what your personal needs are.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, we're going to jump into grants. This is a big area. A lot of people have a lot of questions about grants. And again, I'm going to say no silver bullet here. So as I said on the backdrop here, remember, there really is no foundation that's going to give you a check for the full amount of your adoption. Most foundations want to see that you have skin in the game. Most foundations want to understand your story, and most foundations want you to meet their mission and their vision for the families that they are looking for. And let me explain that further. Foundations are basically nonprofit entities that are run by a board of directors. They have missions, they have philosophies, they have vision statements and goals, and they have a certain criteria for the kinds of families that they want to fund. Our goal when we work with families is to help match you to the foundation where you most fit those requirements or guidelines. And so what you're looking at here is what we call the trifecta. So when you go out, and many of you may have already gone out and kind of poked around in Google and drank a little bit from the firing hose and looked at some of the foundations that are out there, a couple things you're going to see. There are a lot of foundations that have a religious affiliation. A good portion of them are specific to Christian religion. Most foundations are going to have a financial need requirement. So when we're talking about that, it kind of varies depending upon each foundation. I'm thinking, it kind of waves between $140,000 to $170,000 a year. That's modified adjusted gross income. Also, some factors in that are, do you already have children? Where do you live? I mean, there's a lot of different factors in that. And then, of course, special needs. Are you open or are you adopting a child with special needs? Now, the idea around this is if you can check all three of those boxes, you're just going to qualify. It's not a golden key, but you're just going to qualify for more foundations, okay? You're going to qualify for more of the requirements out there. But if you don't, let's say you don't have a religious affiliation, perfectly fine. You're going to qualify for the ones that don't require a religious affiliation, and so forth. So let's talk a little bit about some of these top foundations. And again, this is not by any stretch of the imagination an exhaustive list. We provide a list to you of the most up-to-date foundations that are out there. We keep this list as updated as we possibly can. And on that is a downloadable template that you can download from our portal that is going to give you all the information. Who do they fund? How much do they fund? When is their deadline? All different information. But the intention here is that you connect with a coach first, because this is a lot of work. Okay, so let's restart here on reviewing the foundations. I think I was talking about Life Song for Orphans, right, before we got interrupted by this little power surge that I had. So Life Song for Orphans, Christian organization. They can also do a loan, as I said, for $10,000. They have what is called My Story, which is sort of a crowdfunding platform. And they do what is called matching grants. So matching grants are basically this. You make an application, you fill out an application for a grant. You say you want $5,000. You raise the $5,000 by using their My Story platform, and then they match your $5,000. The $5,000 that you raise from friends and family is going to go on that platform. So that means that those gifts are tax deductible to that family. Show Hope is another foundation, pretty big. If you know Stephen Curtis Chapman as a former performer, I believe, Show Hope is his foundation, and they are also a religious foundation. So what I mean by that is they're going to, some of these at different levels, okay? So Show Hope, for example, pretty intense application. They're going to ask you a lot of faith-based questions, so just be aware of that. Life Song will too. Help Us Adopt will not. They are a non-religious organization. A Child Waits is non-religious. A Gift of Adoption is non-religious. And JSC Foundation is a religious foundation. So here's a perfect example of why you want to work with a coach. Because the truth is that you don't want to apply to every single foundation that's out there. Please don't do that. It wastes your time, and more importantly, wastes their time. Most of these foundations have very small staffs, and it's really very critical for them. So your coach, based on your inquiry, is going to be able to say to you, okay, don't apply to Show Hope because you don't have a pastor or a minister that's going to give a reference or even a phone call, so don't apply to them, but you can go ahead and apply to Help Us Adopt and A Child Waits and Gift of Adoption, or vice versa. If you have a very robust faith-based community, and you want to apply to Show Hope, then go right ahead. You can apply to Show Hope, and you know that you're going to come in meeting their guidelines. And that is the most important thing you need to know. So we have videos about this, how to do this. We also, of course, really highly recommend that you connect with a coach in order to, before you do any grant writing. So every year we do a grant panel every year. And on the grant panel, we have a number of different executives from the very foundations that you saw there. And they come in and they talk about what makes a good application, what to do, what not to do, what they like to fund, all different kinds of things. And I can tell you that probably across the board, no exception, all of the foundations want a story. It's all about your story. It's all about you making a reasonable case, all about that. And this is not the story that you would put in your profile book. This is a different story. This is a story of your compelling reason for adopting, okay? And it doesn't have to be this, big dramatic thing. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about what your personal story is and how you're conveying that story. We spend a lot of time on this. Your story is what we consider to be one of the core documents of this process. There are 3 core documents before you can apply for grants. Your home study must be complete. Your budget must be complete. You must be able to articulate your budget. Our adoption is X amount of dollars. We have X amount of dollars here. We're going to fundraise here, and blah, blah, blah. So you need to be able to articulate what your plan is. And your story is really your compelling reason. You are making the case. And in most cases, you are meeting that with the mission. So the mission of the organization. Remember, I told you, we have a group of board members that are sitting around a big table, and they're looking at thousands of applications, and they're reading these applications, and they're reading these stories. And those board members know the mission, and they know the guidelines, and they know the philosophy of the foundation. And what are they going to be looking for? They're looking for families that emulate, that mirror that mission. And that's where the coach comes in, because we can actually help you to articulate that story so that your application gets noticed, if you will, which is one of the things that you obviously want to do. So questions at all, Kim, about, it looks like there might be a few questions about grants, perhaps?
My apologies for my typing. I thought I was muted. Someone had emailed me a question about webinars and exclusive webinars versus this webinar. But
Okay.
I don't see any questions from our live audience at the moment, but I love that your team actually works to understand the personal experience of each adoptive couple or adoptive family and
Yes.
helps them hands-on with developing their story. And this is different from the profile that you'll create for birth moms to
Very
see.
It's a
Yes.
different audience altogether. So the profile goes to the prospective birth mom.
Right.
That is not what this is going to.
Exactly. And some grants do want to see that you have a profile, but when
Yes.
they're asking for your story, it's more like sometimes the things you don't really focus on in your profile. Like you might, for a grant, you might go into a little more detail about what actually brought you there. Whereas in your profile, you're focusing more on what you're looking forward to in parenting, your personality and values, so a birth mom can know what type of parents you'll be.
Right. They're very different. And as kind of a result of that, we have come up with what is called a anatomy of a story. And so we have a video, and then you can download this template. And basically, it's going to ask you a series of questions. We have a very specific process for how we get you to start to talk about your why, your compelling why. That's one of our processes that we have. But then also, what's in the first paragraph? What's in the second paragraph? What's in the third paragraph? So what's in each one of these paragraphs? How long is this story? It's never more than a page and a half.
Mhm.
You're going to have a long story, a short story, and you're going to have a verbal story too. And that
Mhm.
verbal story is going to be for that phone interview or for that fundraising event that you're doing. You're going to have different versions of this story. One of the reasons that story is so important, and having gone through this myself, I can tell you, I was exhausted. 29 months we waited, which is really not long now, but 29 months we waited to travel to China to bring our daughter home. And in that 29 months, I cannot tell you how many people ask me, how's it going? What's happening with it? Just over and over and over again, because they weren't going through the experience. They're not experiencing it like you are experiencing it. And so to be able to figure out at the very beginning what you're going to say, more importantly, what you're not going to say, how you're going to say that in a grant application, in a fundraising venue, in an online crowdsource venue that you're going to do, all of those things are very important. So getting this as a core document out of the way first, it's going to just relieve a lot of stress for you. You're going to know what you're going to say and when you're going to say it. I can't tell you how powerful that is.
And I just have to comment, I love how this is all mapped out for families.
Yes,
No reinventing the wheel.
no,
You don't have to start from scratch and figuring this out. Kelly's team has worked with thousands of families over the years successfully. So there's a blueprint for you.
yes,
There's
there is.
a, yes, step-by-step guidance. I love
Yes,
it.
it's true. And we don't give up. So we don't give up either. We don't say no
Mhm.
and don't give up.
I love that.
There are some families that we've worked with for years. So
Hmm.
we don't give up. I mean, there are families that do intercountry adoptions that go on for years. And so, and it can be very, very difficult. There are also
Yeah.
families that do, relative adoptions or kinship adoptions or more difficult things or emergency placements. So we
Mhm.
work with all families, and
Yes.
it really is a privilege to do this work.
Mhm.
So the crowdfunding, something I think that's very important about crowdfunding is to really understand the power of crowdfunding. This kind of gets a little bit into the fundraising thing. So I can always tell people start to cross their legs and fingers and toes when we start talking about fundraising. And the truth is that we really are not comfortable, are we, asking for money? Now more than ever, we have more ways to ask for money, right? We have more platforms that we can look at, and sometimes it really can be very overwhelming. I can tell you that in adoption, because it's so intrinsic and because so many people want to help and it builds community in such a fabulous way, that crowdfunding can be a very, very important tool for you. And it is a tool. None of these things that I'm talking about are do-alls and be-alls. These are tools. And again, what the coach is going to help you do is put that plan together for what tools you are going to use. So none of these are things that you must do, but we have, of course, as Kim said, we've worked with many, many, many families. So you don't want to do a loan? Okay, fine. We'll figure out another path for you. Perhaps you want to do more fundraising, or perhaps you want to write more grants, or perhaps you want to put more money in that savings account. So our goal is not necessarily how many grants do you get or how much money do you raise. Our goal is to make sure that you understand your financial path, that you have a path to follow, and that you feel good about that. You're making that path and creating that path based on your needs. So that's very important. So when you look at a crowdfunding site, a couple things you want to ask yourself. Is it a nonprofit? If it is a nonprofit, it really is the same as a grant. It's the same as receiving a grant. Cash gifts are different. Go back to what I said. $17,000 in cash gifts each person can receive without claiming those on their taxes. What is that in a gift registry? That's going to be GoFundMe. GoFundMe is a cash gift registry. Okay. An example of the nonprofit is going to be that Life Song, which is My Story, or another one is called Adopt Together. So those are some others. A lot of times we have people that ask us about fees. Well, fees are pretty much standard. They've kind of leveled over the years. It used to be all over the map. Now it's pretty level. You're going to pay fees, but they're going to be pretty much credit card processing fees. You want to make sure you understand who receives the money. If it's a nonprofit, it could be that your agency receives the money. That's another thing about grants. Typically, your provider will receive your funds, okay? And then it'll be applied to your account. And I think it's very important to know that just putting up a site doesn't mean they're going to come. If you don't have a presence, on Facebook or social in some way, and you expect us to put up a GoFundMe page or an Adopt Together page, you've got to work at this. You have to create a community in this space. So you can't just expect to build it and then be like, okay, they're going to be there to fund this. Here's
And
a couple.
Kelly,
Yeah,
if I may, a
yeah,
couple of things. If you are setting up an online crowdfunding page for your adoption fund and you need to choose a field partner, check with us about that because we are a field partner that is on the drop-down menu for some online crowdfunding
oh, wonderful.
pages.
Okay, good
Yes.
to know. Yes, that's really good to know. Thank you. I didn't know that, Kim.
Yes, and the second thing is that if you are already, let's say that you've already paid for your services at Lifetime, but whatever it is has to be, those funds have to be sent to your agency. You can still have them send it to us and we can reimburse you for that amount or hold on to it and send it, let's say, to the attorney when the time comes and so forth.
Yeah,
So don't be shy about it. Let us know if you have any questions about your specific scenario, but those are some things just to keep in mind when working with
right.
Lifetime.
Right, that's very important to know. Some of the foundations will not reimburse for loans, for example. So, there's some nuances here. So knowing that Lifetime will be able to give you a reimbursement for the overpayment of funds is a very, very important thing.
Mm.
So just let me top line this. GoFundMe, we all know about GoFundMe. Some people like GoFundMe, some people don't like GoFundMe. The good news is that everyone knows GoFundMe. The bad news is that everyone knows GoFundMe. So it's kind of a double-edged sword.
That's
Um,
funny.
Everybody can fundraise on GoFundMe, okay? Anybody and everybody is on GoFundMe, but I can tell you that at any day of the week, I can go on GoFundMe and type in a last name or a first name, and I can find their profile. So it does work. ABBA Fund, this is a faith-based program here, and it's more of a matching kind of fund where you send the profile out to your various different friends and family. Adopt Together, adopttogether.org, we actually work with them. They're very similar in the same kind of space as GoFundMe, but they are only for adoption and they are a nonprofit. Hank Fortner is the founder of Adopt Together. He is fabulous, and he comes from a very large family, has a fabulous story, but they have a foundation. You can put a profile up, you're up with other adoptive families, they have matching funds, they have a lot of things. They're very dedicated to that particular platform. And then of course I talked about Lifesong and My Story, which is another really popular platform that people are going to use. So a couple of basics about crowdfunding. Social media presence. You build it, doesn't mean they're going to come. So you really need to work on that. You really need to work on expanding that. Use it as a hub. It is not, think about the number of clicks that people are going to come in. I don't think you should have multiple platforms. I think pick one and use it as a hub. You can connect, for example, your GoFundMe with your Facebook page. You can, use GoFundMe or use Adopt Together or any of them to write your story and add updates and those kinds of things. And make that engaging and fun. Don't only make it about money. Don't. It's about the whole thing, isn't it? It's about your experience. It's about where you are in the process. I always say, welcome to the club. You're now a part of a very exclusive club, and it's an adoptive family club. And you get the opportunity now to educate other people about this extraordinary experience because they don't know what you're going through. And so make it engaging and make it fun. And finally, timing is everything. We don't ever really recommend coming out of the gates without a budget, without a home study, without your story. We just don't recommend starting that way. First of all, you don't know. You can't come out of the gates and say, oh, yay, we're raising, $40,000 or whatever the case might be. everybody's going to be like, oh my gosh, it's like they're going to be scared to death. They don't understand that. So you need to be able to have a plan and articulate that plan and have your home study and your story and your budget done so that you come out of the gate saying, this is what we're doing, this is how we're going to do this, and boy, we'd really like some, some support, or invite your community in and begin the process of kind of educating and communicating with them about that. So making a pretty big pivot here.
My favorite topic.
Yeah, really. Hope everybody is sticking with me. I apologize. We're going to run a little behind because of my technical difficulty here. But if you were in my office, you would see sparks flying from my lips.
Oh.
I'm talking. Okay, so adoption tax credit, some new things have come on the horizon with this just as of like the last day. So I'm going to cover the basics here. I know you're going to have questions, so I invite you, if you have questions, we'll try and get some of those answered tonight, but you can always just email us at coach@youradoptionfinancecoach.com. The adoption tax credit, first of all, it is available for private, domestic, intercountry, and foster to adopt special needs. The only type of adoption that is excluded from the adoption tax credit is a step-parent adoption. It's the only type. It is a dollar-for-dollar reduction of your overall tax liability. Kim, I got the answer to the question for you. So what is a tax liability? The tax liability is the taxes that you've already paid in. How do I know my tax liability? You are going to go to your W-2, okay? And on your W-2, your federal withholding is in box 2. Box 2, Kim, we were just talking about this before. Box 2 is where you're going to show, where they're going to show how much money you have paid in, okay? So that's an important number because when you file for the adoption tax credit, you're going to get that back, okay? So box 2 is your federal, and then box 17 and 19 are your state and local withholdings that you have. And I bring that up because there are states that do have state adoption tax credits. Ohio is one that has a $10,000 adoption tax credit. So there are states that have different tax credits. You need to file for the adoption tax credit in the year that your adoption was finalized. So that means if your adoption is finalized in 2025, you would file for it when you file your 2025 taxes in 2026, okay? If you have a series of numbers of years, so let's say you have 1 or 2 years that you have crossed over, that you have done your adoption, you combine all of those expenses in the year that the adoption is finalized. So you could bring in expenses from 2024, for example, 25, and then file them in 2026. The adoption tax credit is a per child credit. So it's per child. And that is very, very important. A lot of people don't understand that. And it's important because when you finalize and you apply for the adoption tax credit, you have that child's social security number. So it's very, very important that you know that it's per child. Okay, here it is, guys. Hot off the press, literally like 2 days ago, I think.
Yeah, just found out about this.
Yeah, literally. Now I realize as I'm looking at this is probably not correct the way I'm saying it. Adoption tax credit now includes a $5,000 refund. A tax credit and a refund are two totally different things, so probably an accountant would take exception to that statement that I just made. But it is still a tax credit. They did not get rid of the tax credit, okay? They just added a $5,000 refund. Now, I've not had my tutorial from my tax professional yet, but I did pull this from ChatGPT. I'm going to admit it. I pulled it from ChatGPT. So, and you can too. Just go, tell me about the adoption tax credit $5,000 refund. It'll tell you the whole thing. But this is an excerpt from that, and the total adoption tax credit for adoptions finalized in 2025 is $17,280. Now let's ignore that refund portion. So up to now, what you would do is you would look at your box 2 on your W-2 form, federal withholding, and you'd see that maybe you had paid in $10,000 of taxes. So on the first year that you apply for the adoption tax credit, you're going to get that $10,000 back. And then you're going to push forward, you're going to carry over $7,280 for the next year, okay? You're going to do that up to 5 years or until the fund is completely taken away. What they have added to this is a $5,000 refund. And the reason that they've added this is because a lot of folks have low income, and so pastors, for example, ministers, military people have low income, low withholding is what I want to say, low withholding. And so if you've only paid in $3,000 in taxes, then who cares if it's $17,000? You're not going to get that because you've only paid in 3 and you're only going to get 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is why, so this is coming in now. So this is a $5,000 tax refund. Now, tax refund means something different. You still, I do believe that you still need to submit expenses for this, receipts for this, but the refund is going to be off the top, okay? And you no longer have to worry about like income and those kinds of things. That's the refund.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why that is very, very different. And I'm going to stop there, more to come on that. I will tell you that when you work with Lifetime, one of the things that we do is we do monthly webinars. Typically in January and February, we will bring in a tax specialist who does nothing but the adoption tax credit. And she will come in and she does a 90-minute webinar for us in January and February. And it's literally, we literally have hundreds of families that participate in this, and she does a full information about the adoption tax credit, and she can do your taxes for you. So she's kind of double duty here.
Kelly, your team is such an incredible resource for families. People don't
Thanks.
know that these resources exist. So kudos to all of you who are listening, because now you're tapping into the resources that are out here for you, the support that everyone is here ready to provide for you. You're not on your own.
Yes, and while Lifetime and their team are doing the heavy lifting on the adoption process itself and you know, pulling that whole thing together, while they're doing that heavy lifting, we are coming alongside and helping you to uncover these resources and helping you to get the kind of resources and put those in place that you need. It's a really, really good combination, and not you know, it's not available to everyone. So I appreciate you saying that.
Mm-hmm.
So here are the adoption tax credit amounts. Okay, I don't know if you can see this, but
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so in 2025, it's $17,280. Now, just because they added the $5,000 on that doesn't mean you can't take it. It just, and again, I don't know too much about it, but it doesn't mean you can't take it. It just means that if you took the 5,000, then that would deduct from the 17,280. So, and it depends upon that. So my disclosure is, this is new information. My disclosure is I am not a CPA or an accountant. So we will get our story straight, I promise.
Yes.
Give us a little bit of time. So, but then you can also see in 2024, it was 16,000, 2023, 15,000. So each year this tax credit goes up. The reason I show you this is to say to you that every year it goes up. And so for domestic adoptions, for domestic placements, sometimes you can, sometimes people have a propensity to want to file before their adoption is finalized. Okay, now you can do that for domestic adoption. Some accountants will tell you that you can do that. I really don't think it's a good idea, because you're going to miss out on that higher number, right? When it comes in, you're going to miss out.
That is such a good tip. And also, whether you have to have finalized or not can change year to year.
Exactly, exactly. And let me just say this, you must have it finalized, okay? Do not want to go through that process. And there's just a lot of tips and tricks. And so I encourage you to watch for that webinar that we're going to have in January, February, and you'll literally just get so much good information. A couple of other things you need to know. We have so many people that come to us and say, well, my accountant told me that I didn't qualify, and so I just shouldn't even apply. Well, I get real frustrated by that because this right here tells you. So let me break this down for you. I give you a full 5 years to look at this because I like to show you kind of how this has evolved in the jump. But if we were just to circle in on 2025, let me help you understand this. If you make $259,189 as your modified adjusted gross income, you still qualify for the entire adoption tax credit, the entire thing. If you make $259,190 as your modified adjusted gross taxes or income, excuse me, you're still going to get the tax credit. You're just not going to get the full amount. This is what they call, this range is what they call the phase out range. So if you are in this range of your modified adjusted gross income, the 259 to 299, you're still going to get something. You're not going to get the whole thing, but you will still get something. And this is where accountants will turn you away and say, no, you make too much money, okay? The law, the tax credit law is really very complicated. And so a lot of accountants don't have a lot of experience. So I just encourage you, if you're going to go to your own accountant, yay, go to your own accountant. But the first question you ask them is, how many tax credits have you done? Adoption tax credits have you done? And let them tell you that, because if they haven't done very many, then I would encourage you to shop, because it is a very complex law and you can leave money on the table. And a lot of accountants don't necessarily know what this is about. We find this a lot in CPAs because they're business accountants. So nothing wrong with that. It's just, it's the reality. It's not really, it's kind of like knee surgery. How many knee surgeries have you done, doctor? You know, it's kind of like knowing that, right?
Well, and it sounds like more diagnostics need to be done. It's not a pat answer someone can give you at a glance.
No,
they need to actually see your information first.
That's true. That's true. So be sure to check back with us on our site and also on the Lifetime site. We will come in and do a webinar around the adoption tax credit as it kind of gets closer in the beginning of the year. And I have a sense that that's going to be kind of busy at that time of year. So just a few more minutes before I close this out. I don't want to leave you without talking for a moment about employer funds and the support. We are seeing now that there's a huge increase, I guess, I can't give you a percentage, but there's a huge increase in employers that are offering adoption assistance. If you're sitting here tonight, you're listening to me and you're thinking about your employer and your employer does not offer an adoption assistance program, I want to invite you to let us know. Your employer can provide an adoption assistance program that allows you to exclude from income $17,280 and also take the adoption tax credit and also provide you a reimbursement and give you time off. This can be very budget neutral. I can't tell you how many families we work with and we ask them if their employer provides a benefit, and the first thing they'll say is no. And the truth is they do. I also cannot tell you how many people I have seen that have gone to their employer through a grassroots effort because they've experienced this firsthand and have been beneficial in paying it forward and helping the employer, the HR team, to create a benefit for employees that come up behind it. So it's very grassroots. A lot of employers don't understand this. My favorite story is a family that had this. Their employer provided a $10,000 reimbursement. They got matched with twins. They said, no, it's only per adoption. No, it's not two. I'm sure it's not two. And we encouraged them to go and ask their employer, and it was per child. Per child.
Wow.
So if they hadn't gone and asked, think about that. Think about the loss of that. Now, my little 5-minute commercial is, we've created a company called Vesta for Families. You can still reach us through Vesta, through the coach email, as we said, but this is the company where we are actually going out and helping employers to create adoption benefits, family building benefits. If your employer, if you want your employer to provide an adoption benefit, we will be more than glad to reach out to your employer for you. on your behalf and talk with them. And there's so many things they can do that don't cost them anything, but absolutely help you in so many ways. So that's the website, and there's a form on there that you can fill out and let us know if you want us to reach out to your employer. And I guess at the end of the day, if there's anything that I can say, or it's illustrated here, adoption finances are complicated. And you don't have to go through this alone. We are here for you. We're here to come alongside and help you and be just a part. We're so delighted to be a part of the Lifetime team and work with each and every one of you to help you bring your family together forever. So with that, Kim, I'll ask if there are any final questions. And I want to say thank you so much for the opportunity to visit with you tonight.
Yes, if you do have any questions, now is your last call to type those into your questions box if you are in the GoTo app or viewing and listening on your device, computer, what have you. Kelly, thank you so much for getting into this great information for us. I know how overwhelming it is for families, not only to find themselves in a position that could be unexpected, where they're looking into adoption as a way to become parents or as a way to grow their family, but then to encounter the fact that there's a big financial component. But once you tap into the resources, you find you're not alone. There is information, there is step by step guidance. And Kelly, you're just leveling it up every time. I love the thing that you're doing with the Vesta for Families.
Thank you.
Someone totally needed to do that.
It's so fun, and
Yeah.
there are so many companies out there that are really willing. It just really is opening the door and asking.
Yes.
And I can't stress enough. Go, tomorrow, go knock on your HR leader's door. Do we have an adoption benefit? And if they look at you, then just hand them the website. Just hand it, because I can tell you that many corporations that we now work with have been because their employees have gone and said, you need this. You need this. It's very important. So
Right.
we're happy to help in that regard. So thank you, Kim. Appreciate it so
Yes.
much.
It's been a pleasure. I'm glad we had this chance together to do this webinar, Adoption Funding 101. And thank you all for being with us. We hope that this information has been helpful, and be sure to reach out with any questions. Do not go away with questions unanswered, but be sure to call, text, or email us with those. And we look forward to seeing you on the very next webinar.
Thank you.